Welcome! In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a filter pocket with a buttonhole stitch. Now to make them this long, I have to hack my machine, so I will not be using my buttonhole presser foot. I will be using instead a regular presser foot that's clear and is easy to see the center of. Just to clarify, I am using a Brother computerized machine. I do not know if this will work on your machine. However, if you have the same setup of the machine as I do, you could likely apply these techniques to hack your machine to make a larger buttonhole. The supplies that you'll need for this project are your fabric, some interfacing. I have just a scrap since I don't need much. A washable fabric pen, rotary cutter, and lastly your ruler. Since we don't have our buttonhole foot to guide us, I mark 1.5 inches from the very edge of my face mask, and then from top to bottom I leave a space of 3/4 of an inch. That way I have enough seam allowance for my mask, as well as making sure the hole isn't too close to the edge of the mask. Setting up my machine, I decided to not go fancy with my buttonhole and picked a very basic one, which for me happens to be number 35 on my machine. I put on my clear and central lined presser foot and then drop down my buttonhole pressure sensor. Most machines start stitching the buttonhole from the very bottom of where you want to start. So you want to center the bottom of your line with the needle. As you can see, I have my interfacing layer right underneath. And then as I start to sew, I will leave that line that I drew centered on my presser foot. As you can see from the front view here, once I started stitching, that needle will stitch on the left side of my line instead of down the center. At this point, I have reached the top of the line with my stitches. And this is the important part to get your machine to start finishing the rest of the buttonhole and sew back. You will push the sensor forward since we already sewed back. So you push it in the direction that you want the fabric to go. So you can see I pulled it forward and now it's starting to sew the other way. Again, this works on my Brother computerized machine. You may have to play around if you have a slightly different model or a completely different brand of machine. You may still be able to get something like this to work for you. You will have to repeat pushing that sensor forward and back several times, however long it takes you per the pattern of your buttonhole foot to finish your buttonhole. For me, it was 5 times back and forth before the buttonhole is complete. With your buttonhole completely sewn, you just need to trim your ends and then use your rotary cutter to cut down the center of your buttonhole, making sure that you don't hit any of those bar tacks on the edges. Now that your filter pocket insert is done, you can sew this onto whatever mask pattern that you're using. I have found that this works better on the flatter masks like an Olsen pattern as opposed to something that has pleats because it bunches up a little funny, but it will work on pretty much any pattern that you use. If you found that the tips and tricks used in this video apply to your non-Brother machine, whether it's a Janome or Singer, whatever that you have, please write that in the comments, as I'm sure lots of people will have questions if this can be applied to their machine or not. And unfortunately, at this point, all I know is that this can be applied to the Brother computerized machines. If you want to see more of what I do, hit that like and subscribe button, and thanks for watching.